Bajadi Gamarua Gadigal Eora. Good day and welcome to Gadigal and Eora country, where these podcasts are being made. I'm Uncle Michael from Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, and we're the custodians of land, air, water and culture within our boundaries. Our elders and members would like to welcome everyone here to these podcasts, and we'd like to acknowledge that it is on the land of the Gadigal, and we'd like to also acknowledge all the different countries, clans, tribes and nations around New South Wales and around Australia, but we'd also like to further acknowledge those other countries from around the world and the First Nations people from around the world who also understand the connection to country and how important it is to look after Mother Earth and to the spirituality and culture that's in there. As we say here in Sydney, it came out of Redfern, always was, always will be Aboriginal land, never ceded. I'd like to talk a little bit about totems. Totems are very important to Aboriginal people because it's the connection to country, and totems are a spiritual and relationship as in a family to us. So Barani, when they came in here, they would be protected, and they know over many millennia they have safe stay here. Also, the Bara, the eels, they would know that they would be safe and they would have their journey out to the South Pacific. But also we have in central New South Wales, we have Dinawan, which is emu. Other totems are things like cockatoos, the white cockatoo, the black cockatoo. They're all part of people's totems.
Welcome to Busting Buzzwords, the podcast where we tackle those words that mean so much to our work, yet so little, in the aim to what, Ben? Bust them! So, who are we with today, Ben?
Well, we've got an amazing person. I think a person everybody should have heard of when they're working at the University of Sydney. And maybe that person can introduce themselves.
Yaama, I'm Tracey Cameron. I'm a Gamilaraay person from Gamilaraay country is from northern New South Wales. I'm working here at Sydney Uni and I teach Gamilaraay language and I work in the Indigenous Studies and Aboriginal Education team.
Well, and full transparency, I think, again, one of my most favourite people here on campus to work with. I've been working with Tracey for a long time now, teaching with Tracey for a long time now in a unit that features a lot of what Tracey's been working on for, how many years would you say?
Nearly 15 years, yes.
15. Students love her. So do colleagues. So again, very, very happy, Tracey, that you can be with us here today. Really appreciate you making the time. And let's get straight to it. Yeah. What's the word we're talking about? What's the phrase?
Today I thought we'd talk about Yaama. So Yaama is hello in my Gamilaraay language. And it's a greeting term that's kind of been developed over the last 50 to 100 years since invasion and colonisation. And it's a word that Gamilaraay people have coined for, hello.
So why that term? So that term came to mind. Why was that?
Well, I thought, having an Aboriginal input into this would be good because, well, that's me. So, and being a Gamilaraay person, I want to share that, I suppose. And Yaama is a term that is a Gamilaraay term. It's a term that's used by a lot of people kind of as part of Aboriginal English now. So that's another thing. And, it hasn't always been a term either. So
how come? So what happened to this term? What was it before? How did it come to be what it is?
Well, it's kind of it's a question word really. So if you want to ask a question in Gamilaraay, so if you're saying Yaama Gala, is that a glass? And you'd be saying, yes, that's a glass, or no, that's not a glass. So it's a question word which you use it when you're having a yes-no answer.
I remember that. I took a language class with Tracey and I remember that. And I remember all of the students we were sitting there and I was like, right. I think it took us like 2 days to really get into that. But it was super interesting. Super interesting.
So it's more because I'm trying to tap into my language teacher brain and look at, word formation and what the words are. So the way I'm understanding it is that Yaama, before having a significance, a semantic significance, is more like a discourse marker. It sort of frames a discourse, it frames a question, it frames something.
Yes, that's right. So, yes, it's a question word. And so, yes, you're right. It frames a particular type of question and answer.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. But then, I suppose with invasion colonisation and the demand for, later on saying hello and goodbye.
Yeah.
Then that was a word developed really, I think a long time ago, 100 years ago or more, and it was a word that has been used for hello. So not only is it a question word, which is used all the time, but it's now used for hello.
Okay.
It's like yalu is the word for goodbye, because there were no words for hello and goodbye, I guess, in traditional Gamilaraay, as far as we know. And so these words have been kind of coined to take that place, and yalu means again. So, see you again sometime type of thing.
It's exactly like the French. Goodbye for French is au revoir, which means until I see you again.
Yes.
That's fascinating. So Yaama is a word that became hello after colonization. Is that correct?
Yes.
So would you say it's like a reappropriation of something that was, imposed?
Well, it's a coining of a term for current parlance or something like that, I suppose, because it was demanded to have something.
Okay.
This is why I think Tracey is brilliant and more people should listen to her. And they will.
I totally agree with you.
Projects and other And you can in a podcast called Tracey.
Deep listening.
Yes, there you go.
Stories of Country. There you go.
There we go. Plugging the thing.
Plugging the thing.
Right. Okay. I have a question there because I remember Tanya, I think was her name, an amazing also person. Maybe you can say a bit more about her if you'd like, Tracey. But you talked about, again, going way, I wanted like 4 or 5 years. Yeah, that intensive language class you were teaching, Tracey, as I was there. And Tanya, one of the participants, was talking about hearing Yaama, hearing it in Mount Druid. I just remember that story so vividly. It was like 40 degrees outside in January here. I was like sweating my something off. And I was just looking forward to the AC, the air-conditioned environment up at the Charles Darwin, like inner city campus here, Railway Square. And I was like, that is so interesting, hearing Yaama. And Tanya talked about hearing it at Mount Druid and how happy she was about hearing it, and she hadn't really heard it anywhere else, and she was like, that makes you feel at home and welcome. So maybe can you talk a bit more about that?
Yes.
Well,
I guess Tanya was talking about the Aboriginal English use of the term Yaama. So in Aboriginal English is a dialect of English that Aboriginal people speak, and a lot of people use Yaama in that dialect. Other people from different areas would use other words, other greeting words. For Ginigay, if you are talking on Gumbaynggirr country from the North Coast perhaps. So, but Yaama has been kind of picked up by Aboriginal people in a lot of places and used as the word for hello as well.
Yeah, because I remember she was like the warmth and the, like you could just feel she was just vibrating with like the joy of like hearing it and saying, well, hey, and explaining it to international students. I remember there was like 80% of the students or something were international, and she was explaining to them like, why do you use it in Australia? What's the purpose? Like,
yes, and it does. It's really, using terms like that and using Aboriginal English is a real kind of way of Aboriginal people identifying as Aboriginal people, and linking up and joining up with other people who are also using Aboriginal English is fantastic, and always great to meet people and who are doing that. And lots of Aboriginal people do use Yaama. I think Brooke Boney, is one of the people who was working on Triple J. I think she's on a different station now, but she was using it in her broadcast. So she'd start each day with Yaama, and that kind of spread it a little bit as well, so that more people got to know what it meant.
But I loved when you talked about, introducing yourself when you're teaching here on campus, which is obviously, Indigenous, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, context here, Yaama, Bene. Like, I really, really appreciate that. And the students love it when Tracey goes in there, tells them how to introduce themselves, and they ask a lot about. So what is that language context, how to make sense of being on this kind of land, that's...
Yeah, I think it's important to, know which country we're on. So here on Gadigal country in Sydney, it's important to acknowledge country and to, to be aware of what's in country. Gamilaraay is not the language of this country, and I'm not from this country, so that's why I would acknowledge Gadigal people and Gadigal language here, which is really important. But I guess the use of Aboriginal English is kind of spreading more widespread in that different languages come into it. So it's not just Gamilaraay language or, the language from Sydney, but lots of different languages come in depending on which area you're from or which area you're in. But Yaama is a great one because it's kind of lots of people are using it too. It's great to know that people are acknowledging kind of, Aboriginal people and country, and maybe people could learn the word that's hello from the country they're on. That would be a really wonderful thing too.
That's a fantastic suggestion. I'd love to know what it is. But I think there's one question that I have is what does that word mean to you, Tracey, Yaama? Because you've explained to us what it means, how it is used, but I'm really keen to know what it means to you.
Yeah, well, to me, I think it's it's a very special word, and I like to use it all the time to kind of to tune people into my country, my language, and I think that's important. But to me, it's really, as Tanya's saying, it makes me feel, connected to
Maybe
country.
we can just should say who Tanya is.
Sorry,
I forgot.
Tanya's a great friend of mine who's a Gamilaraay person as well, and Welwyn person, and she's from Gallargambone. That's her kind of hometown. At the moment, she's teaching at Mungandai, which is in the northern part of Gamilaraay country, and she's teaching Gamilaraay language, so it's very exciting.
The most amazing sense of humour.
Yes.
Before she entered the room, you could hear the laugh. So I remember that.
She's a very outgoing, gregarious, and wonderful teacher. So
Right.
she's amazing, and she's loving, the language teaching she's able to do at the moment. And I agree with her that word Yaama makes you feel so good and makes you feel, connected to people, to ancestors, to country, and to other Aboriginal people too. So it's a really great word.
And it's your language. I mean that.
It is. It's my language as well. So, which is really important to be, showing people that this language is around and that it is at the moment being revitalised. So languages in New South Wales have suffered a lot of damage through invasion and colonisation, but a lot of languages are coming back, so revitalising and being reclaimed by the local communities. And I guess with the Aboriginal Languages Act that was passed in 2017 in New South Wales, that act was passed to protect and preserve and to I suppose, kind of support Aboriginal languages in New South Wales. And there's an Aboriginal Languages Trust, which is a great organisation which is supporting Aboriginal languages.
And they do Instagrams, which we have seen. Really
They're on
cool.
socials.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And the YouTube, the production value is so amazing. They look, and
Yes.
Priscilla was, I guess, another person. But yeah, maybe Tracey can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. They've got their website and, as you say, their socials up and everything, and they're starting to really, I suppose, talk to Aboriginal people from many different communities in New South Wales and ask about language and what's happening in that area. And people are talking about the importance of language to everyone, and the importance of language for us to be able to pass on to our children and to be able to kind of share and have available for us, to connect us to country and to connect us to each other.
Clara, you were saying this before. If I took away, bonjour, if I took that away from me, how would it make you feel? And I'm like,
Well, for me, it's not even bonjour because French is not really. I mean, I grew up in a multilingual household. So
what did you hear?
Corsican from my mum's side. I heard Arabic from my grandparents and
wow.
different dialects of Arabic. There was a lot of language suppression there in the sense that on my grandparents' side to integrate or acclimatize,
or assimilate, as it was
assimilate,
called here.
thank you.
Yes.
That's the word I'm looking
Yes,
for.
that's right.
In order to assimilate, they used French. They only used the other languages when they wanted to talk about things that we couldn't understand. And I remember my mum telling me the story of her being in kindergarten, being whacked on the hand with a wooden ruler when she would use Corsican words and not French words. And so there's this whole idea. So when we're talking about taking away language, I think you don't, because language can never be dissociated from its context of use and its the heritage, and because language is always a political choice, isn't it? And so by choosing to use a language, you're sort of conveying a message as well, and the whole idea of taking language away means taking someone's identity, culture, belonging, like all these different things. And I think it's not something that we automatically think about when we think of language. And that's why I'm really, 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 really happy that we're talking about a word such as Yaama, because it's deceptively simple, isn't it? In its meaning.
Yes.
If you look at the meaning, it's deceptively simple. But the actual meaning, cultural, political, is so much more important, so much bigger, so much more, complex than that.
Sorry, this is a question for Tracey there. It's because the premise of the podcast is, the buzzword. But, and again, full disclosure, we brought Tracey in and she kindly agreed to do this, to be the final guest of the first season. To really, I guess, not bust it or something like that. In this case, it's really all about busting the assumptions, as Clara was saying, around, because sometimes I get the feeling here that, you've got this working language that's English, and we've got such a diverse campus, such a diverse community. The students are sometimes, I think, getting punished for not using English the right way. So my sense is always, there's a right way to do language, a right way to be in language. And then there's, again, full disclosure, we talked about this before and with other guests, there might be a sense of dissatisfaction if you don't let people, say these words, let them be in their language, and then staff satisfaction and all this stuff that plays into it. So I guess we're trying to kind of bust that in terms of like the primacy of English and as a colonial thing. So Tracey, if you could maybe share your thoughts, if you'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to have that, that cultural connection. That is what language is. It's not just, as you say, not just words. It's much, much more, and it connects us all through, even through time, back to ancestors and back to country, through, space as well. So it really is something that is an all-important indicator of so many other things. And I guess that's kind of one of the reasons that I do use it a lot, to kind of tune people into the fact that, languages have been damaged, but they're still here, they're still in country, they're still used by people, they're being brought back by people. So we often say that the languages are sleeping, but with the Aboriginal Languages Trust, we're able to be doing all that extra work to find resources, to find archives, to find what people know, put it all together and to really build those languages back up again. And that's something, I guess, that I'm really involved in and really passionate about. And I guess by saying Yaama to people, I'm tuning people into the fact that, there are languages, no, they're not disappeared from here. They're still here, and they're still being, they're still so important to people, and they're still being used and worked on and taught and learnt by people even now. So I think that's really important.
Is it your favourite word in Gamilaraay?
It's one of the favourite words, I've got to say, yes. There are lots of great words in Gamilaraay. I mean, I think winning Ali, to listen, to know, to love, to remember. Those words kind of are all based on the word for ear, which is bina, and it is a word that's kind of relates back to ways of knowing. So language is a connection to different ways of knowing as well, which is so important. So in Gamilaraay language and the way of knowing things and to be understanding things, remembering things is through the ear. So through that listening kind of idea rather than speaking or seeing. In English, I think we say, oh, yes, I see, when you understand something. So in Gamilaraay, we're saying, winning Elena, we understand, we hear. So that's kind of an important difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And I think it's important to listen, to have that kind of frame of looking at things rather than, immediately talking and looking, and it's all involved there. But, listening, that deep listening is something that's so important for understanding.
And I think that's sometimes something that, again, we talk about this quite a lot also with colleagues and, around campus, where sometimes you might not feel like you're being heard, and then there's this need to be listened. So I think
that's it. Being able to have a voice is, important too, and having people listening to that voice is so important. So yeah, that's another connection back to using Yaama, I guess.
Unfortunately, I think people don't listen enough. Sometimes you're in a community of people and you simply sit in silence and wait for your turn to speak. You're not listening, right? And so then it sort of takes away the meaningful aspect of any conversation. And sitting here listening to you is a really powerful experience in the sense that, you know, it brings so many questions and it opens so many different ways of thinking. And I think that's what language is, right? Language just opens up new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world. And it makes me want to, you know, open my ears to listen more. It just because of one word that you're talking about, the word Yaama. It makes me want to know more about Gamilaraay language. It makes me want to learn Gamilaraay language because it's only through language that you keep culture alive, I think. I mean, it's one of the ways, not only, but...
That's it. It's linked into so many different things as well. So,
it is.
You know, it's part of everything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's so important.
And just hearing that is, it's just, it's a really powerful experience, I've got to say. You know, I mean, absolutely no offense or disrespect to all the other guests that we've had, but I think it's a powerful experience just sitting there listening to you talking about that one word. It's humbling, I think.
Which makes sense because we are on Indigenous land.
Yeah, that's it. We're on country, Aboriginal country, wherever we are in Australia.
And as you said, Tracey, you know, this is where it starts. And, you know, the word, the sentence, the story.
Yeah.
And if there was a way to have that word on every land you go, on every country you go.
Yes.
Which for me as a non-Indigenous, I mean, I'm an expat, but as a non-Indigenous person who arrived in Australia fairly recently in the grand scheme of things, I would love to be able to know the words belonging to the country on which I stand. And it would, I think, just deepen that connection to country and offer a connection to country.
Well, that's great because I think there are some apps that do that. If you're on country in some areas, you can kind of tune into the country you're on and that will tell you how to say hello in which country, what the name of that country is, and then how to say hello. So, yeah, there is that. And I know that the ABC has been fantastic in its naming the country where all the stories are in Australia, where the stories are recorded or when they're talking about different places. So that's really great as well.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think that
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do teach Gamilaraay language here at Sydney University.
I was going to say, so for anybody who is interested in maybe, you know.
Yeah, semester one is each year I teach Gamilaraay language here at Sydney University. So
fantastic.
And I can just say the best thing you can ever do is take a language class with Tracey. It is really nice.
Well, I will definitely see if I have the time to do that because I'm very keen.
Right.
Oh, wow,
And
fantastic.
just to wrap things up, wrap the first season up, we thank Tracey for coming in.
Thank you for
I
taking
think
the
this time we can kind of fairly decide already that not having these words is a busted thing.
Not having this word is a busted thing. Yes, we need that word. Thank you so much, Tracey, for your time and for sharing all of this and for allowing us to connect a bit more with country.
Maraba, thank you very much.
Yalu.
Yalu.
Yalu.